what should we be looking for as we go into this final game?
Well, we already mentioned the right side of the line. That's definitely something to keep an eye on in this one, and it's going to be very key for this game. Another thing that maybe wasn't a big deal in week one because it didn't affect the final score is penalties. They actually had
Mhm.
11 penalties against the Steelers, and that ranked 31st in the NFL in week one. So, not great, right? So, something they need to clean up. As I assume that they will, because the last couple years they haven't exactly been known to be like a penalty ridden team. So I think they'll clean it up, but definitely something you hope they do as soon as week two. Um, and another thing, like I've been thinking the Rams did look better than you would have thought, but also I think the Seahawks looked worse than you thought as well, right?
Yep.
So there might be a bit of the Rams coming into this game, feeling really good about themselves. On the other side, you might have the 49ers also feeling good about themselves. I mean, a team that, decides to wear their home red jerseys in a away game, like I hope they're not jinxing themselves.
I
Um
know. I didn't like that.
but
I'll like it if we win. I don't like it
I
right
like
now.
it. It's like I like the disrespect, but it's risky. It is a little risky.
Super
Um,
risky.
so Stafford obviously still good. His
Yep.
arm probably looks better than it did last year. I would say, and even despite not having Cooper Cup, like they were able to move their offense and keep the ball rolling. Their run game looked pretty decent as well. Which in the past, like last year, think about their running game last year. That was kind of non-existent.
Right. It was Cam
Like
Akers
they
on
had
timeout or whatever the hell was happening, and then
yeah, I don't
whoever
know.
was
I don't
left
know
to
what was,
share
and
the
then he
carries.
like he rejoined the team, right, and didn't really do anything until maybe like the last two games. But that kind of benefited obviously the 49ers and whoever else played the Rams last year because they were already by default one dimensional. I think last week we saw a more balanced Rams offense. So what the 49ers are going to need to do, and this is true for most teams that they go against, you want to make them one dimensional. One dimensional. They did it against the Steelers. The Steelers pretty much gave up on running the ball pretty early. They weren't getting much on the ground to begin with anyway. So you want to do the same thing with the Rams. That's step one. Then you want to get pressure on Matthew Stafford because if he's comfortable, he's going to cook you. Like
Yep.
he's that good and he's really good. So and I'm not saying getting pressure with blitzes because he's actually pretty good against the blitz. So you have to be careful with that and continue to rush for which based on week one, I think the 49ers could do that, right? They showed that they can get a lot of pressure with just four guys. And even if, the Rams decide to double team Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, Nick Bosa, someone else is going to eat. Like
Yep.
Drake Jackson, maybe Clinton
Yeah.
Farrell gets a sack this one. He came close, last week a couple times. So I think that's what it's going to take for the defensive line to just make Matthew Stafford uncomfortable. They've been able to do that in the past, so I expect that they'll be able to do it again. Um, I mean, Kyle Shanahan, this 49ers team has kind of owned the Rams in the regular season, right? Um, even if you look at the one game that they won in the playoffs, right? It's been complete domination outside of that. So I would expect that the 49ers, should and will win this game and they're going to make the Rams look like the bad team that I think we thought they were from the beginning because, their roster Kyle Shanahan even mentioned like yeah, looking at some of their guys, like you don't really recognize any of them besides their quarterback and Aaron Donald, um, and that's partly because a lot of these guys are just like new or just bottom of the barrel guys who are now starting. So, yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan's going to be able to exploit their defense pretty easily in this one.
Yeah, I think on paper this is a victory,
Yeah.
and I hope it translates that way. I will presume it will. Um I there have been games like a Colt McCoy Cardinals team, for instance, that I thought was going to be a walk in
Mm,
the park, and we ran into
that's true.
challenges. I don't know. I don't think we will get there, but I am always on edge, wondering if we will run into a trap game at any point this season, because at least one trap game a year, seems to be apropos for the way we've operated over the past few
Yeah.
years. So I'm always on trap watch as much as I can be. What I'm looking for in this game is I want to see if Drake Jackson, I want to take a bite into that gold nugget and see if it's real or not. Because from what we saw, that was a pretty incredibly impressive performance. Is he the beneficiary of a stacked defensive line? Probably, yeah. But at the end of the day, um, if he is able to continue his progress, where do you go? Like, where do you put your emphasis when you're game planning for your blocking scheme? Because at the end of the day, if everyone is a threat, then we're going to see a lot more demoralized offense football when our defense is on the field, and that's really exciting. So I'm looking to see what Drake Jackson does. I'm super concerned about the nickel spot. I don't
Mm,
know
yeah.
what is to come from that. I don't know. There's also the mystery of this cap space that appeared. There's a lot of speculation of, okay, don't worry, this is not even, we're not even touching this right now. This is for something else. There are people who are wondering if it's for a move. Perhaps the answer is somewhere in between. But if our defense begins to show vulnerabilities over the course of the season, you have to imagine that this is perhaps something that's in their mind, and we shall see. I mean, you don't go to a player like George Kittle asking to restructure uh, just because it was, your horoscope told you to do that week. There's clearly a strategy that they have in mind, and it's kind of fascinating not knowing what that strategy is going to be. Obviously, they haven't overtly said one thing or another, at least to my knowledge. So, in the meantime, obviously the secondary appears to be the most vulnerable place in our defense. But as we have discovered over the years, they place a great deal of emphasis on the defensive line, and frankly, rightfully so. I think we've reaped the benefits of that ideology for years, and I would prefer they don't change it. So I look forward to them shoring up the secondary there. I think Wilkes has done an outstanding job so far, and I think just building that consistency is what I'm looking to see. So from the defense in general, and then if Drake Jackson can come in and give us even just a little bit of a flash of what he gave us week one, I think we're in great shape.
I don't know about you, man, but I base all of my decisions on what my horoscope says. So
Hey, you know what? Yeah, my horoscope said I was going to be wealthy and successful, so that tells
hey,
you how smart horoscopes are.
it's probably the same horoscope that Patrick Peterson had. But Drake
Yeah, seriously.
Jackson, Drake Jackson, I am looking forward to Drake Jackson, and the reason that I do think he does continue his production, maybe not 3 sacks every week, but I think he's still going to be effective and someone who's going to get this team a lot of pressures, because he had 6 pressures on 28 snaps on Sunday, just 28 snaps. Like, he played less snaps than Nick Bosa did, and he was able to do all of that. So he was very efficient. And yes, you said it. I think he is the beneficiary of other guys getting a lot of the attention. But that's by design too. Like, the
Yep.
49ers knew this was going to happen. That's why they sought out to get Javon Hargrave. That's why I don't think they really pressed too much to bring um another high caliber like edge rusher. They brought in Clinton Farrell, and they were really putting a lot of trust in Drake Jackson to take that next step, which to me it looks like he has. If you looked at, what he was able to do, yes, like, you'll see Eric Armstead like collapsing the pocket, but if you also see what Drake Jackson was doing, his technique was nice too. So it wasn't just like a fluke performance, I don't think. And I like the role that he had, actually, where he's really just coming in on passing downs, and that'll help keep him fresh, and it'll also just allow him to put his athleticism on display in those obvious passing downs. Now, as far as the nickel situation, That is really concerning. And it's
Yes.
one that I thought should have been like figured out already. They haven't figured it out. They literally had to make a change in game, and that's not what you want to see in week one, because like it has been this back and forth of Isaiah Oliver. Oh no, he's not looking too good, or oh we have competition, and that's why he's not the starting nickel. Oh come on, Ambry Thomas, like show us what you can do. Ambry's taken another step this year, and then Ambry goes out there, and then I don't know. Is it too much confidence? Then he's starting to, make some bad plays out there. I guess like what Kyle Shanahan noted was it was some plays before the last drive before the half, which was the one that the Steelers scored on, the only scoring drive they had. Lenore did have a couple of penalties on that one, but I guess like Ambry Thomas had some miscues as well. So that's why they took Ambry Thomas out, and why you saw Isaiah Oliver more in the second half. Not ideal. I mean, and you're really at that point going back to Isaiah Oliver, because the guy you replaced Isaiah Oliver with wasn't doing well either. So I don't know if this is like a winning situation, no matter how you slice it right now. I think the 49ers have to hope that either one of these guys, and soon, steps up and finds whatever they had going for them before, when the 49ers thought that they should be the starting guy. Um, I do think Isaiah Oliver will figure it out. I mean, because he's been that guy before, right?
Yep.
There was a reason the 49ers thought he was the best nickel in free agency. So I think he eventually finds that confidence, or whatever, is going on with him. I think he finds that again. But they need that to happen like ASAP. You
Totally.
you can't go into the season and you play divisional games and have this not figured out yet. So hopefully, I don't even know who's going to start at nickel this week. I don't even know if the 49ers know, and that's not great. So, yes, that is a big concern going into this week.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, if there's if we see a sequence of explosive plays over the course of several games that are at the result of the nickel position falling flat, it's probably a situation we're going to need to address, because ultimately we have some really hard hitting offenses that we're going to have to face if we want to presume ourselves as Super Bowl opportunists. And the Cowboys are going to know where to strike, and Philadelphia is going to know where to strike. And at the end of the day, I'm just hoping they pull it together, because with such a massively intimidating front, it would be a shame to waste all that talent by just letting things slip with the defensive backs. So that's my piece on that. Anything else to look for? Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you've seen this show before. Of course you have. I've seen you in comments.
Yep.
Do you want to do affirmations with me? You don't have to, but I forgot to ask you if you want to sign off. That's cool, but I like to do affirmations at the end of every show. I like
Okay.
to give some. I like to let people know they're doing good. You let me know, but last thing, go ahead and give me your last thoughts on Rams versus 49ers.
I did want to touch really quickly on the fact that they have, a ton of money. And that's pretty much like the ace up their sleeve right now, right? I think it's like save it for a rainy day money, because you don't know when you're gonna need it. And yeah, there are a few question marks right now. You hope you don't need it and guys figure it out. And then you can roll it over to next year, pay Brandon Ayuk with it. But it's nice to know that if there is something that ends up looking like a big issue, they could address it, by the trade deadline. So I do kind of expect that to materialize into something at some point, but we'll see. My final thoughts on this game, though, is that, I mean, I think the 49ers are going to get the job done. And I think before the game even starts, it's going to feel like it's all 49ers. And that right there is already demoralizing for the Rams. And yeah, they're probably used to it. Like their home stadium is there's no home field advantage there at any
Correct.
of their games. They're used to that. But it's different when you play the 49ers because there's so many 49ers fans out there and already in LA, and then they travel from the Bay too or wherever to go to that game. So I'm expecting a sea of red. The fact that they announced that they're going to be wearing their red jerseys, it's going to make it even worse. So yeah, it's going to be crazy. So even before, I think that's going to pump up the 49ers even more to know that look, we're not even home and like this is like a home game. And the Rams, I think it might have the opposite effect. Might deal with them. Keep in mind there's a lot of young players on that team, so I don't know, maybe it might mess with their psyche a little bit. But if that doesn't mess with them, then I think the 49ers defense certainly will. And that's usually how it goes with this team, right? And the thing is, it's always been the defense that has kind of caused the demoralizing. But I think we're at a point where we're starting to see the offense get in on it too. And it's very hard to stop this offense with what we've seen Brock Purdy do with it. And now, like Christian McCaffrey as well, and how dominant he's looked against the few games he's played against the Rams. So I think all those things combined, it's going to be tough for the Rams to overcome that. Sean McVay's a great coach, so I think he will keep them in it for a bit, but the 49ers are eventually going to just run away with it.
That's sort of what I'm thinking too. As much as I like to be neurotic about what could or could not happen, I think that as much as the Rams have momentum, I think we've got momentum.
Yeah.
And we have momentum with a stronger degree of force than I think the
Hmm.
Rams do.
It's real.
Yeah, it's real on both ends, but it's
No, it's
really
not. They
real.
played the
It's really
Seahawks, man.
right. But I mean, they're feeling great. They've got a lot of confidence, but like they're about to get hit by a Mack truck. Like I think it's a
Exactly.
different level of impact that these two moving vehicles are going to collide at, and I personally think 49ers walk away with it. There's always a little bit of a concern of a trap game, but at the end of the day, I think our skill position players let them know what time it is. I think between Hargrave, Nick Bosa, and the whole crew, we're going to be doing damage on that line. So I think we walk away with a victory, and frankly, I think we walk away with it with at least 2 scores or more over the Rams.